Anthony, as many of you guys know, has been a concept artist for about, he claims, 8 years, and a recent full-time educator as well. His school opened up 8 months ago, and it's called Robot Pencil. I'm sure he'll talk a little bit about that as well. He's our first talk tonight, and he's got some really cool shit for us to see. So, without further ado.
Can you guys hear me all right? Yeah? Yeah? All right. So, I'm going to tell you guys a story. It's my story. A lot of you may have already heard it. Some of you have never heard it. So this is for those who have never heard it. So don't be selfish, the rest of you. So basically, I was a plumber, right? A plumber's apprentice, actually, not even a real plumber. And this was when I was around like 22 years old, almost 23, right? And my whole life, I didn't go to college, I didn't do anything. I just went from job to job, and I ended up as a plumber. And the day that I pulled out a dead cat out of the drain, I realized, you know, this is a really shitty job, like literally and figuratively, right? And I was like, okay, I need to find a new career. And I wasn't an art kid. You know, there's people that drew like their whole lives. I wasn't that guy. I mean, I drew Dragon Ball Z characters, but who hasn't, right? Like, everyone's drawn their anime or their favorite character at least once or twice in their life. And that's as much as I've ever drawn. But I was a music kid, so I had some creative ability. And so I decided, you know, I'm going to go to school and make video games, right? That's pretty much like a lot of you guys started. You don't know anything about the industry. You're like, I'm just going to go and it's going to happen, right? I'm going to make things. And I'm half black, half Korean, right? Which you might like, why are you telling me stuff? Because I went as a programmer, right? I was like, well, I'm half Korean, I got the math. Right? And I can run really fast. And that is true. God knows. I was like, I run over there, I can still beat you. And, because I'm black. And so that was always true about me. So I thought maybe the math part, and I was always pretty good at math. And it's so hard, so much harder than you would expect. So I went as a programmer, and I did that for like a quarter, which was like a month or two. And then I went to like a class where I was sharing with like other artists. You know, it was like a life drawing class, and I was like, why do I have to do life drawing? This is bullshit. You know, and it was bullshit if you're a programmer. Why are you doing life drawing? But I got a chance to see other artists like draw, and I was like, they're not drawing that good. I could draw better than them. It's like, is this like a real job that you could draw? And all of a sudden, like, all of this like epiphany, huge epiphany. It's like, of course there's an art job, right? Like, who makes all the monsters and the characters and the creatures? Like, there's someone behind all that. And I was like, oh, that sounds like fun. That sounds like something that I want to do, right? And so I switched gears. I went to my counselor. I was like, hey, you know, I want to be a concept artist. And she's like, do you have anything in your portfolio? I was like, no. I was like, that's why I'm going to school, girl. And so I can learn how to do it. And she's like, no, you can't do it. You got to be an artist. And I was like, all right. So I went from like hating art, like my life drawing, to like realizing that our life drawing instructor was one of the greatest life drawing people because I was a different mentality. But I really, Charles Hugh is one of the legendary like life. I was like, can you show me how to draw a leg? And he was like, okay, oh, this is how you draw that. And he'll just do it, and I was take it home and like put it on my wall. I was like, this is probably worth thousands. And I don't know where it's at. Bad investment there. But like my point is that I took it very, very seriously. Right? I knew there was people out there who had been drawing all their lives, that were artists. And so I drew every day, like 16 hours every day. I would only leave the school because they kicked me out. I would get to the school before they would open the doors. You know, every day, drawing every day. That's all I did. And for like a month and two, I had like a stack of papers, like this big. No, it's like probably like just like, you know, probably that many. And I was very proud of it. I was like, I'm going to show them. They're going to be like, you're going to be a concept artist now. Get a job. Go. And I'm like, awesome. So I show it to my counselor. She looks at like the first page. She's like, okay, we'll switch you over. And I'm like, no, look more. Like, look at him more, right? Like, look, here's proof. You know, I was like, if I would have just, the day that I said, like, I want to be, and she's like, no, I would have just went outside, drew, like, a Dragon Ball Z character, come back in, and be like, I do have a portfolio. And so that was, like, my first tip-off that this school probably not be the best, but anyways. I digress. So I pursued art, and I became an artist. I became one. You know, I wasn't born one. I became one. You know, there is definitely differences in people, right? You know, the word talent is thrown around a lot, and I think people misunderstand what talent really means. Like definitely people are taller, faster, stronger, better, power, right? There's definitely people that are different. Some people have different mental capacities. Some people have mental disabilities. There's differences, of course, in everybody. But there's one thing always true about the best of the best, is that they work really, really hard. That is almost always true. No matter, like, the reason Kobe Bryant is better than me at basketball is not because he's taller than me. It's because he plays a lot of basketball. That's why he's better than me, you know? And I think people forget that. Like, Kobe Bryant, when he first started his career, was actually one of the worst. Like, he kept missing, like, the winning point every time, and he kept on getting flack, like the first year he ever played. And then he's like, nope, never again. And he just trained himself. He was, like, people have heard that he would sit in the gym and shoot until he made 300 points, or 300 points, and each shot was worth 1 point, right? He'll just shoot until he made 300 points. That doesn't mean like every time he shot, he did 300 shots. I mean 300 points. So he could have easily went to 1,200 shots, you know what I mean? And he did that every day, all the time. And that's why he's one of the most recognized basketball players. Again, it's not because he's taller than me, it's because he plays a lot of basketball. He practices. And so that's pretty much my whole career. I've worked for studio after studio after studio, and I just pushed myself every time. And I tried to, you know, really inspire people to understand that the reason why you're not good is not because you're talentless, you don't have it in you. It's because you're either not working hard enough or you're giving up too easily, right? It's one of those two things. And if you can keep persistence, eventually something will come from it. You know, maybe not what you expected, maybe something different, but something will come, right? Like John Lasseter, one of the great legendary people that live today, he was a failure too. He failed at a lot of things. Like, he was very successful in school. He was one of the best animators, but he got fired from Disney, right? He worked for Disney. He's like, this 3D stuff I think is a thing. And they're like, get out of here. You're a loser. And he's like, oh no, Disney, I love you. Right? And then he worked for this like little tech company that will also, like, there are millions of dollars in debt. And you know, obviously that eventually became Pixar, right? Even the first draft of Toy Story was a flop. You know? It was a failure. Like, Disney's like, this is bullshit. We're not going to give you any more money. And then they redid it in like a week or two. And then they had Toy Story out, changed animation forever, right? And I think people forget that. They always see the person when they're the best, when they're already there, when they're at the top. They almost see it like, when you see that person, you think, they just were born that way. It's easy to think that. But that's the illusion. They were not born that way. And so I want that to be clear, because that's my story, and I think that's everybody that's successful story. And if you guys want to be successful, remember that. Okay? So now, let's go ahead and talk about what I'm going to talk about. Yeah? Which is the future of concept art, or just art in general, right? So, before we do that, I want to show you my work, just in case you don't trust that I draw well. I don't know about this guy. You're all a lot of talk, but, alright. So you be the judge, right? So this is the concept art that I do for myself. This is the kinds of stuff that I like to draw. And luckily for me, this is the kinds of stuff that people want me to draw and give me money for it, alright? I'm like, alright, I'll do it for a price. Right? It's really, really dark, but it's okay. We can keep the lights on. Don't worry about it up there. Don't worry. You know, robots and monsters and shit. You know? So I dabble in 3D. I like to paint. I like to do photo bashing. I like to do anything that makes good art, right? Like, for me, I started with no preconceived notion of what art should be or what it can be. You know, there's a lot of people that when I teach a lot of people, and some students come in with this mentality of like they already think they're really good. I already do a lot of foundational studies. I already do this or that. And I'm like, no, you don't, because if you did, I would be able to see it in your work, right? Your work should reflect what you know. And if I don't see it in your work, then whatever you're telling me, there's something missing, you know? There's something not there, and you're not recognizing it. For me, when people told me I sucked, I was like, yeah, you're right. you know, because I did suck and I had no, like when I did an accomplishment in my paintings, I always felt, you know, okay, I'm getting better, and then someone would be like, nope, not even close, you know, so it's important you understand that, like, change is inevitable, right? Change just happens. Learning these new softwares is getting easier, really easy. You know, software used to be very, very difficult to basically learn. So let me go ahead and start. Oh, technology. No, what it is I'm trying to like look at this and then also like navigate. All right. Okay, this is where I'm gonna have to switch gears. Can you hear me better? All right, can we dim the lights now? Oh, non-profit, yeah, right? That is some pro. All right, anyway. All right. So the future of concept art with AJ. You guys can call me AJ. We're all friends now. Right? So like I said, back in the day, it's like change again is inevitable. Back in the day, people would just wanted artwork for, like, draw me. That's what I want. You know? And people would get paid their life, their whole life for just like this type of stuff. You know? Well, like Michelangelo, like, we'll pay you, how long are you going to live? Okay, we'll pay you for that. 16 years? Okay, 16 years of payment. Right? And he's like, okay, yeah. And art was treated like with like some grandeur. Like people really loved them some artists. And then, you know, you started going into fantasy where you started to, like, people like Rosetta started to show that you can go beyond what is seen in, like, you know, in real life. You know, and don't get me wrong, they have always there was a time where people fantasized, but this is kind of where really that started to take hold. You know, movies started to do that too, and entertainment started to do it. Things started to change. People started seeing fantasy and sci-fi as a really viable escape from reality, right? Like I said, it's always been around. Like Greek, you know, like they have like the head of a lion, the body of a man, the legs of a goat. You know, it's just like that's their concept art. But you know, it really evolved. Like around, I really believe around this time. You know, before beyond like just like put a stamp on it and then call it new. You know, I don't know. And then went to digital, then everything changed, right? Like then, like there was like almost no limits to your creativity. You know, Jurassic Park came out. And I remember watching that and being like, what in God's name? They made real dinosaurs? Dino, DNA, right? I was like, this is real. Like, this is real. They made them. They made them, Dad. And my dad's like, yeah, I agree. Because he also was like, this is reality. So what's next? So what's next? Virtual reality. Right? The Oculus Rift, that's a new thing. Like Samsung's getting into that kind of stuff too. The architectural field is already doing it. They're already doing stuff where they can give you like this VR set, and you can go to your model home or the mall that they already designed, which is crazy, right? And you can walk around it and look around and be like, I don't like that ceiling tile, remove it. And I'm like, all right, you know? And I think concept art is going to go in that realm too. I really believe so, right? And so I think that people are used to this formula now because things are always changing. And since technology is changing, I think education, the way we think about it, should also change. Right? Because right now, there was a time where they say, you know, education equals diploma, diploma equals career. Right? And this, for most of you, that's not entirely true. Right? I don't even have a diploma. Right? And I have a career. So that can't be true. And because the internet is around and things are becoming easier and easier to access, right? And the way that like tools are being used are just easier. You know, you can start your own career. You know, you can be someone that does something that no one else can do, and it will change the face of whatever. Like John Lasseter, right? It's easier to start to become more and more John Lasseters are starting to form, more Steve Jobs, because you can reach fewer audiences, right? You can reach fewer people. You can reach fewer places, and have your own career, and I think that's great. And so one of the things that I've started to do, embracing the new change of technology, and embracing the new way of thinking of education and how we should evolve, I started using game engines to display my concepts. Oh, let's do it in red right now. I just realized. It's okay. It still will be okay, I think. So I did my concepts in Engine. This is in Engine. Took me about 3 to 4 hours to do. Right? With textures and all that stuff. But, you know, that's not just it. Like, you could actually walk around in it. So this is my new sense of concept art, where you basically create art galleries. You can walk around and say, hey, art director, here's the concept. Did you want it in a different color, which you can't see because it's all red? It's fine. It is fine. You know? Let's try a little more dynamic lighting setup. What do you think about that, mouse? You know? You know, I did a paint over, if you look over there, of what I think the costuming can look like. What do you think of that, mouse? You know? And then here are some like thumbnail sculpts that I did. What do you think? And they can walk around, look around, touch it almost, right? And listen to glorious violins on the go. The sculpting tools and the texturing tools, they've gotten so easy to use that you don't have to worry about the tool holding you back anymore. You got to worry about yourself holding you back. Like I said earlier, there's only two things that are going to prevent you from moving forward, you know? And don't let those two things stop you, okay? And as you guys can see, like, what I'm going to try to do is make this available so people can actually walk around and look at it themselves. And it's very light. You can install it onto your computer and start running around in it and enjoying it and listening to the glorious music. And, you know, steal my presentation too. Like, my presentation's in the game, right? Like, it's like in the game, right? Right? And that's not just it. Like, I also made a game, so this is my soldering her, called Don't Link Baby. This is going to be pretty intense. So hold in there. And so you don't have to just work. Link Baby. My friend, it is in my best interest. This is also available for you guys to play. So help on furniture. If you make I'll let you guys listen to that some other time. But to get back to my point, let me just go ahead and show some videos. And I'll just turn the audio down so I can talk while you guys will watch. Like, again, you can create interactive, like, concepts. Like, this is all done in the engine. There's an artist that's much better than me at this. His name's Kula, and he does, like, these crazy realistic interiors and environments using the Unreal Engine. And it's just, like, that's when I was like, wait a minute, you can do all kinds of stuff. And this was just a test. This took me, like, again, like maybe 2 or 3 hours to set up, you know, and it's just a test. And I'm at the moment where this is just the beginning of me doing this thing, you know? So give me like a month, maybe a year, this will become crazy, right? Imagine your art director going into your environment and being able to change the colors, the textures, the shapes, you know, by interacting with the environment, you know? And you know, I think that people are always afraid. Someone asked earlier during the roundtables, they're asking, like, well, should I learn 3D, or is that something that I should do? And I said, yes. Why don't you want to learn 3D? You know? Because it's hard? Well, then there's no excuse, right? Because someone else is going to come to that same question, they're going to be like, well, I'm going to do it. And they're going to be one step ahead of you. But don't forget, guys, that understanding what makes things look good, why things work, why things are well designed, and understanding that will always be true, no matter what the tools do and how they evolve. But ignoring the tools as they evolve, I think, is not a good strategy, right? You should try to make an attempt to understand them, especially since they are becoming easier and cheaper to use. There was a time when those arguments were a thing, like, oh, it's just too expensive, or oh, you know, there's not a lot of like education for it. That's like starting to disappear. And so I highly recommend and I highly encourage you guys to try. What do you have to lose? Like, one of our friends, like, he's so stubborn. I was like, hey, you should get an Unreal Engine. It's free now. He's like, I don't want to get it. I don't want to buy it. And I was like, I just said it was free. Like, he just like autopiloted like his stubbornness. You know, he like autopilot. I don't want to try anything new or anything hard. And so don't be that guy. Don't be Kalen. Call him out. If this is ever online somewhere, I hope he sees this. Where's the camera? Yeah, all right. Kalen? That's right. Busted. So anyways, guys, like, the future is here for reals. Like, for reals. They made the hoverboard. They did it. Okay? And so I highly encourage you guys to just chase your dreams and make something awesome and inspire other people to do awesome stuff. And that's pretty much it, guys. Thanks.
We got about 10 minutes for questions if you guys want to ask away.
Questions?
One of the things, what do you think your biggest pain points are when you were first starting off, before you kind of got into concept art, game design? What do you feel kind of got in the way the most, and what did you think was the best way to get around it?
Okay, that's a question I hear often, right? Like pretty much like, how do you get past that like first frustrations and like when you first started,
the struggles,
like the art blocks, stuff like that, you know? So I think if I were to ever have an ability that's like a talent, you know, I would like to think that is my pain threshold, right? Your brain, if it feels a little bit of pain, it'll be like, let's get out. Let's get out, let's go to Facebook, let's watch some kitties, do people doing backflips. That's always cool. Let's do that, you know? And for me, I think when I was a kid, there's a movie that I saw that where it was about this great runner, right? An amazing runner. It was like a movie based off of this runner's life. And one of the things that he did was like, or he got interviewed for very similar things. Like, what makes you the best? Like, why you were the best runner? And he's like, well, I don't think it's because I'm talented. I'm a talented runner. There's plenty of people better at running than me, better technique, better everything. It's not because I was born with it or I'm more interested in it than others, or people that are more passionate about it. I think what makes me better than them is that when I feel pain, when my heart wants to stop beating, when my feet are like killing me, when my legs are burning, I run faster and harder. And I know everybody else in the race is not doing that, you know? And that stuck with me, I think, as a kid. You know what I mean? Like, I was just like, whoa, man, that guy's intense. And it's a true story, right? Like, he's an intense runner. He's like you think, okay, well, everyone says that, whatever, right? Like, he ran a race with a broken foot. Like, that's a real story of him. He ran, he's like, fuck you guys. And he almost broke the world record on that course, right? He almost broke the record. He finished the race, and then everyone's like, congratulations. Oh, you'll get it next time. And he's like, I need to go to the hospital. And his foot was like bleeding, and it was crazy, right? And then they're like, oh my God, you ran on that? You know, and what I like about that story is because I think that's what happens to people sometimes. Like for example, when I was learning Unreal, there's a lot of times when that happened with me with this software. It happened recently, so I can really reflect on that, you know? There was a time where I was trying to learn particles, and I was like, this is going to be great. And I did, all the words mean nothing to me. I knew, like, at least with 3D, I had, like, because with 2D art and working in the industry, I knew a lot of these terms, you know, I knew what they meant. And with particles, I just knew nothing. I was just like, nothing makes sense to me. I don't understand why they did it this way, right? I was in that moment where I knew absolutely nothing, right? And I said to myself, great, because this is the part where other people will get to, and they're going to stop, they're going to give up. So I'm not, and that's why I'm going to be better than them, right? That's why I'm going to be the one that makes particles in Unreal, and they don't. You know what I mean? Seriously. Like, I know that someone else somewhere is in the same position, and they decided to go play Smash Brothers instead. You know what I mean? And I didn't. That's the difference. That's the real difference. It's not because I'm like more skilled and I'm like a ninja and all of a sudden everything just comes easily to me. It didn't. I literally sat down for like 2 hours and just wrote notes. I was watching video after video about particles and what they, like each word I was trying to learn the actual vocabulary. Like why and what it meant to the actual particle designers, you know? And after that I was like, oh, this is real intuitive. It makes so much sense. But that was like after like a few days of just like investigation. You know what I love that we're in this like space, like museum place? You know what I love about this? Because I think people don't recognize that artistic skill is based off of your knowledge, right? I think that art is like an opinion, or it could be a theory, right? And theories are based off of facts, right? Where opinions are just like, I just don't like red, right? And it's like, okay, doesn't mean red is bad. It just means you don't like it, right? Like, for example, we use the theory of gravity a lot to send stuff into space. But it doesn't mean, we don't know everything about it, but we know enough, right? And I think when I look at artists that don't know enough about anatomy, form, lighting, design, like all that great stuff that, you know, foundational stuff that no matter what tool you use are useful, I can see it. their theory, or maybe just an opinion, is not very good right now, right? And the only way, the thing is, that there's an easy solution for that. Just get smarter, like acquire knowledge. It's easy solution, hard to do. It's hard to do. It's hard to stomach all that learning. Eat your art vegetables, yeah? Yeah. Any other questions? Basically, it's hard. Just push through it, okay? Short answer, yeah.
Can you tell us about Robot Pencil?
Yeah, of course. I was supposed to do a little bit of that. Oh, well. You were like offering, and I was like, no, I got it.
Yeah.
Totally. All right. Yeah, Robot Pencil is my school. It started off as my alias, like my name, because my name is like pretty, like, you know, standard, Anthony Jones. Like if you Google it, before it was just like a bunch of just black dudes. Right? And I'm like, this is not no way to start my names, right? Like I don't have like some of these like French artists, like Raphael Lacoste, you know, see in here? Yeah, like a perfect, like, how can you forget that, right? Like it's just really clearly like unique. Like Anthony Jones is like pretty common, right? So I was like, I need to come up with an alias like Spark, you know, I'm gonna be like that guy, you know? Or like Goodbrush, which is Greg Mullins, you know, I'm gonna be like that. And so I was like, well, I used to always think like the Wacom tablet pen was like a robot pencil, and that's where it came from. So I was like, I'll stick with that, you know? And I used to be in bands a lot, and we had a band member who would always, it's all about the name. It's never about the name. And so I just stuck with robot pencil, you know? It's like robot pencil, if it's good, bad, whatever. People will eventually stop thinking of it as a thing and associate it with who I am and what I do, right? And then, so when I decided to start my school, I just used that as the school name, Robot Pencil, right? And basically it's like a kind of more personalized school where I try to teach you more on your level, see what you're doing wrong with your work. And you hang out with other artists who are going through the same situation. And I try to make people professionals. I don't just teach like drawing, I teach like stuff like this, like inspiring you to work harder, giving you knowledge and information that might give you a different sense of mentality to stop you from procrastinating and stop you from thinking that you suck and everyone's out to get you kind of thing. Because a lot of artists think that way, man, it's weird. Like everyone's like, oh, I suck and everyone's out to get me, right? And I'm like, no, not at all, you know? And so that's like my job. And what I love about our school too is we have a really good community. Everyone like hangs out with each other and like our buddies. And I think there's two things you can control, which is the quality of your work and the people you make friends with. And those are the two things that will get you further in your career. Like I know a lot of people, I have a lot of friends, you know? And then I can focus on my work, right, making it better. And you can't control when you're gonna get a job. You can't control that. You can't control the weather, you know? You can only control those two things, really, right? And so I always try to push that in my school, and I think we do a good job with it. I think we're all right. And some of my students right here in the front, yeah, supporting the cause. Yeah? Anyways, any other questions?
I have a question.
Nope.
No? I don't get a question.
All right, go
Okay.
ahead.
Do you cover at all the business end of
Yeah.
a professional artist?
Yeah, absolutely. I tell people like my salaries that I made. I tell them what they should do in terms of like, you know, getting contracts and dealing with that kind of stuff. And what I've heard people do, and what I've done, you know, it's kind of like what I don't like about a lot of colleges. Now, not all colleges, but a lot of them is where they don't teach you how to work. They teach you like what it may be like to work. Like this is what you might do. You might do some 3D. You might do some art. It's a lot of like, it's weird because some schools, the school that I went to, like I was learning from like recycled students who didn't get a job but then came back into the system and now teaching other people how not to get a job, right? Like, I was like, you didn't get a job. What do you know? How do you know, right? And so it takes a lot of pride for me to. I have a lot of pride in the fact that I know what I'm talking about, and the instructors I get also know what they're talking about. And so I want people when they get educated, like, are actually hearing real advice. One of my instructors, when he first started, like, I was like, give them like what you would expect, like they would actually have to do in the industry. And he's like, I don't know, man. Like, what if like they're starting out or whatever? It's like, it doesn't matter, because that's the reality. You know, in school they give you A, B, C, D, E, F. No, they don't give you F's or E's. They give you A, B, C, D, F, right? In terms of grades to gauge your ability. And in reality, it's A or F. You either got the job or you don't, right? No one's going to want to say, oh, you got a C average? Like, imagine you go to work and you turn in your artwork and it's like a C, right? And you're like, Next time I'll get it to be an A. All right, well, we'll just ship it, let's just ship it as a C. No, they're like, you fucking stay all night and you make this an A, or you get fired. Seriously, right? And that's just how it is. And I don't want people to be surprised, And so, and luckily for me, my students do a pretty good job of listening to me, and they do the work, and they do a great job. So, yeah. Any other questions? How are we doing on time?
We got time for about one more question.
Okay, one more question. Make it count, whoever it is.
Right here.
All right, the question that ends all questions.
So when you're out there seeking for a job, what are the main things you would consider to make an impression on the companies?
So when I'm like, okay, let me try to think about this. Like you're saying like, what is like the number one quality that I try to like let them know that I got? Is what you're saying? Like what is it about me why they should hire me? And okay, so I think luckily for us in the concept art specifically, we can just show them why we should have the job in our artwork. You know what I mean? The only way that you can really screw that up, I think, is if you're just really, really weird. Right? Because we're weird. A lot of us are weird. But if you're like the weird, like if you have good work, they're gonna bring you in. They already want to hire you. They're bringing the face to face is just to see if you are a professional, like you actually know what you're doing. Like you know how to make the artwork that is in the work, Like, can you talk about it in a way that they understand that you did it, That's pretty much it. And just be yourself, I think, is important. So if you are that really, really weird person anyway, like, you kind of don't want to work at the place where they're going to judge you for that. But in most cases, they're not going to hire you, right? Like, when I was working at Sunny, there was a girl, I wasn't there when she was there, but basically she would, like, everybody would have, like, dual monitors. Not working, just like, and you know how like you would like look at somebody and then they'd be like, well, I wasn't sure. Like she'll just stick with it. She's still looking at me. Karen, stop looking at me. No. I don't know her name, so it's like safe. Maybe it is Karen. It is totally yes or right. Anyway. So like I think the phone interview and the in-person interview is usually to make sure that you're the same person. Because some artists can be, like I've met some of those people that people can kind of criticize a little bit harshly, right, in terms of how they act, Because some people, their art is their escape, They maybe have social anxieties and sometimes people don't click with that and it's unfortunate. But I'd say like yeah, you seem normal to me, I think you'd be fine. Just have good work is usually all you really need. Like having great work that speaks for itself and being able to talk about it, I think is important. Like, can you explain why it's good? Not like I'm the best, but why like you chose those like choices, like why you made those decisions. I think is important. Outside of that, yeah, just don't be weird. Don't be really weird. And if you are, just work for yourself, right? No one needs to know. There's a guy who wears a gas mask, and it's like, okay, like that's what he does, and it's fine, But don't be shocked if you go in with a gas mask and a trench coat. You're like, where's my job? They're not gonna, I don't know, unless they're also wearing gas masks. Right? We're not hiring you because your work's not good. So, anyways.
A big round of applause for Anthony, please.